In King's Landing, Alicent watches Vhagar from afar, hoping the dragon won't be the next one to try and kiss her. Welcome back to HateWatchers for our weekly breakdown and review of House of the Dragon. Today we're going over episode 2, entitled Queen's Landing. Now let's get right into the breakdown, which means spoilers ahead. We begin with the reality of the loss of her meal ticket finally hitting Baela. But back on Dragonstone, she tells them Jace is just fine, buying herself a few more moments of princesshood, long enough to grab all the valuable shit in her quarters. Rhaenyra is excited to hear they won the battle, but she gets annoyed when she sees Jace's lazy ass napping. Then, when she realizes he's actually dead, she goes full Ricky Bobby.
I'm not sure what to do with my hands.
Be good just to hold them down by your side. Yeah, great.
And at the end of the day, you gotta be happy.
Then she does find a use for her hands, vigorously shaking Jace to see if any chains shakes loose. And a Queensguard takes advantage of the moment, finally making his move on Rhaenyra. It doesn't work, so he decides to resign before he can get Me Too'd. Rhaena and Sheepstealer show up again in the Vale asking for asylum, but the Lady of the Vale says, "Look behind me. Do you think the people of the Vale chanted 'build the wall' all those years for nothing? No vacancy aquí, muchacha," which gets a laugh out of Sheepstealer. Somehow, the Knicks celebration parade is still going strong, and it gets a visit from Sir Simon Strong, who brings Daemon a message from Rhaenyra. It's just a rambling of general complaints and nagging comments, and a postscript that says Jace is dead, lol. Daemon's gotta go home now, but everyone else gets to keep partying. Before he leaves, Alice Rivers asks for Harrenhal because it's the perfect spooky castle for a witch, but Daemon says the best he can do is a broom, and he knows right where she can shove it. Baela swoops in to help Alan look for his absentee father, but Alan has lost hope and pours one out for Corlys. Out right into his mouth. Adam then joins the search too, and they finally find Corlys sleeping off the henny. Larys and Aegon are back in the bird wagon, where Larys is still begging to put lotion on Aegon's sweet feet when they get interrupted by a blue-haired guy celebrating Pride Month. Aegon joins the festivities the only way he knows how, by mounting a dude from behind, even trying, but failing repeatedly to give him a reach around. Sobered up, Corlys, seeing that he's lost his home and another relative and almost everything now, is finally ready to give Alan his worthless name and accept him as his son. And for Adam? Nothing. In King's Landing, Alicent watches Vhagar from afar, hoping the dragon won't be the next one to try and kiss her. Then she hops into a dude's bathhouse, wading her way through the dongs to speak with the commander of the Gold Cloaks, telling him they're turning the city over to Rhaenyra, and she needs the city gates spread wide open, like that guy's butt cheeks over there. On Dragonstone, the Dragon Seeds tell Daemon they waited patiently to finish Aemond off, but they just couldn't deliver a climax.
Aemond did not come.
Then Daemon is questioning Myzaria's motives when they get interrupted with news that Aemond and Vhagar were spotted leaving the city, finally heading out for his boys' trip in the Riverlands. Rhaenyra has been feeling sick and is facing some intestinal discomfort, but Daemon tries to inform her of the latest developments in between her toots.
But there is first more pressing business.
I have no stomach for it.
Then Daemon makes a move that's best described as ill-advised at this time. It turns out Vhagar won't be the next one to try and kiss Alicent. Instead, it's Lord Ironrod, who gets extra handsy, but luckily he's stopped by the Grand Maester and arrested. Rhaenyra, determined, announces that she means to finally fly to King's Landing, but her advisor has to explain that it's called King's Landing, and that a lady queen landing there would lead to all kinds of confusion. Then Lord Bartimos Celtigar summons the courage to tell Rhaenyra that he can no longer stand the smell emanating from her royal butthole.
I will shut.
Forgive me, my queen, but this reeks.
Rhaenyra takes flight for King's Landing, which is, ironically, in the middle of a No Kings rally, so it seems like a good time for a queen to show up. There, Alicent walks the battlements, where she's afraid every guy here is going to try and kiss her, and based on how the show is writing her story at this point, I'm not so sure they won't. She tells the men to stand down, while in the Riverlands, the boys are shocked to see Aemond finally made it, and the party can begin. Aemond arrives first to the Airbnb, where he's already found some rats to kill, and hey, Anakin Skywalker's also here, and Aemond kills him too. In the Great Hall, Aemond discovers that this Airbnb is actually a shared rental. Should have gone with Verbo. Aemond slaughters the other guests while thinking about the poor rating he's going to leave on this rental. Then Aemond gets his first period at the worst time. He succumbs to the cramps as he begs Alice Rivers for some Midol. There goes the neighborhood in King's Landing as the Blacks arrive. Team Black, that is. They find the city gates spread wide as they can be pulled. Daemon does all the work as he escorts Rhaenyra through the Red Keep, finally presenting her the Iron Throne. Then Daemon tries and fails to stop her, but the Kingsguard and his men accomplish that for him, even mocking Rhaenyra when she whips out her pointy stick. Then the Gold Cloaks come back from their break to find a heck of a situation in the throne room, but Daemon's old drinking buddy sides with him, and the Kingsguard, duty-bound to die for his king's rule, surrenders with the other cowards. Exhausted from almost having to do something, Rhaenyra sheathes her stick. She gets her throne and commands everyone to bring her Aegon, and everyone snickers as they realize Rhaenyra will be the last one to hear the news. Daemon detains the Grand Maester, who's ready to suck his way to a pardon, but then he gets another idea.
I can offer you another who might give you better satisfaction.
That other, who can bring Daemon knee-buckling satisfaction, is none other than Otto Hightower. Everyone wants Ray to execute him, so Daemon whips out his sword, and she needs two hands to grasp his shaft, as Daemon whispers some encouragement. Rhaenyra is about to swing her justice down on Otto's neck, but she sneezes at the worst possible moment, leaving a snot trail dripping from her nose in front of everyone. And Otto laughs his head off, before Daemon removes Lord Ironrod's second most favorite head. Rhaenyra then farts her way up the steps and onto the throne, that in this moment she wishes was a toilet. Then she realizes that she's the queen now, and she can turn any chair she wants to into a toilet. Alicent glides in and sees her dad's head still chuckling on the ground, as Rhaenyra finishes her business and the episode comes to an end. And now we've reached that point in the video where we have to decide if this episode was a great watch or a hate watch. This is a tough one for me to grade, to be honest. I liked it a bit more than last week's episode, but there's always a lingering feeling now that the story is just missing the mark. That the creators just chose to focus on the wrong things in this adaptation. Episode 2 didn't leave as bad a taste in my mouth as episode 1 did, so I guess that's progress. And I guess that's a long way of saying I'm giving this one a debate watch label. I will say the episode was very well acted, and I enjoyed seeing the taking of King's Landing, as it's such a turning point in the story. And it was nice to see the show leaning into the overarching question at the heart of House of the Dragon. Is there any such thing as true victory at this point? Is any of this worth the cost? Thousands have died, Rhaenyra's lost 2 sons, Corlys lost much of his fleet and his home, and these are just the latest additions to both of their prior losses in the Dance of the Dragons. It's a bittersweet moment for Rhaenyra when she finally sits atop the throne, as she's almost lost all her reasons to keep fighting for it. Now, these 2 episodes were the story beats that were originally going to cap off Season 2 before that season was cut short. And you can really see with these 2 episodes what the original vision was. You'd have a big important battle in the Battle of the Gullet, and the season would end with Rhaenyra taking the throne, leaving viewers stewing over what Rhaenyra's reign might look like as they waited for Season 3. And you can see how all of the characters' story arcs were meant to pay off here. Alan would finally earn his father's name, Daemon's vision quest at Harrenhal would end with him leaving and Alice warning him never to return, Rhaenyra finally sacking up and making a move on King's Landing after enough of her children died, and it would have been a better payoff with Otto disappearing early in the season and resurfacing at the end. I don't think it would have been enough to save Season 2 from feeling like a letdown, but it would have helped a lot in not leaving as bad a taste in people's mouths after Season 2. I'm sure the show shed some viewers after last season, so you have to wonder how things might look now had that season not been cut short. Now, I think they had a few missed opportunities with this episode, the seeds of which were laid well before this one. First off, Rhaenyra taking the city only to find Aegon missing was a surprise to the reader in Fire and Blood. And I think this could have been a great, shocking twist to keep in the show. Meanwhile, it's no secret in the book that Daemon left Harrenhal before Aemond arrives. But the show could have played that up as the same kind of twist. Instead, the show gave us neither. I don't know. Sometimes I feel pretty sure that the creators of Hot D are more concerned with giving Alicent something to do or fluffing up these C-tier characters than they are with just nailing the storytelling. For instance, the time and importance given to and the intrigue surrounding a character like Alice Rivers is a little odd to me. Without spoiling anything, her story, if I'm not mistaken, is pretty unresolved by the end of Fire and Blood, and she's not an integral character to begin with. So it seems strange to me to give her time in the spotlight while Rhaenyra's youngest children, for example, Aegon and Viserys, are all but written out of the show. 2 characters that do have significant roles to play in the story. Now, I know they're not adapting the entirety of Fire and Blood, and I have a pretty good idea of exactly which point they're going to end the series at, which would render their involvement moot. But still, you gotta question the creators' priorities with something like that. There was one other little thing this episode that really rubbed me the wrong way. When Daemon is confronting Mysaria about her motivations, he says she's wriggled her way toward the crown like an eel. For those who don't know, one of Mysaria's aliases is the White Worm. Yet they had Daemon liken her to an eel instead of a worm. It was a great, obvious opportunity to touch on the wider lore, and they went with eel. It honestly just forces me to wonder how familiar the writers are with their own source material. Rhaenyra's whole story is off script, just doing its own thing entirely now, as her character is taking the place of the book character Nettles, which is going to reshape some of the important events to come. And you can just see how all these missteps, little or large, add up, and how any trust put in the creators of Hot D is quickly evaporating for people. Now let's get into how these events played out in the book. So even though I'm not going to go beyond the comparable events of this episode in any detail, here's a spoiler warning nonetheless. First off, Rhaenyra is just different in the books, especially by this point. Whereas losing Lucerys left her despondent, losing Jace actually bolstered her and filled her with resolve driven by anger and hatred. She wasn't bedridden waiting for Alicent's plan to come to fruition. Speaking of Alicent, this one goes back to last week, but Alicent wasn't urging Aemon to leave town on Vhagar so her plan to turn over the city would work. Quite the opposite. She was telling him to delay his plans to attack Harrenhal until reinforcements arrived to join him. And speaking of her plan and exact opposites, that's exactly what this show gave us. You see, in the book, Alicent never made any plans to hand the city over to Rhaenyra and didn't coordinate with the city guard to stand down. With Aegon indisposed and Aemond gone, it was actually Alicent who oversaw the city's defenses, barring the gates and calling for reinforcements. But Alicent doesn't have anything to do at this point in the book, and this show always wanted to make this about Rhaenyra and Alicent's relationship, so they can't let her fall by the wayside. And as such, they give some of Daemon's story to Alicent, as was really Daemon's connections that opened the gates of King's Landing for Rhaenyra. Then when Rhaenyra took the Red Keep, Alicent was calling for a great council to decide who would be king, so at no point in the book was Alicent so magnanimous as to hand over power. Speaking of taking King's Landing, in Fire and Blood, this took hours. It required Rhaenyra to bring soldiers of her own by sea to storm the city and root out the loyalists within. Another invention of the show, the Grand Prophecy, the Song of Ice and Fire, resurfaced in this episode, with it being the thing that made Daemon loyal to Rhaenyra in the end, with any disloyalty on his part being, again, the invention of this show. Now in the book, after Rhaenyra ascended to the throne, she was found to be bleeding, presumably cut up by the Iron Throne in the same manner her father Viserys was, something that heralded the tough times for his house ahead. The show has left that out at this point, and that's something I really would have liked to see included from the book. Also left out was a badass quote from the commander of the Gold Cloaks. He's accused of being a turncloak, but he retorts that Prince Daemon Targaryen gave him this cloak, and it's gold no matter how you turn it. They may be saving that line for another episode, and honestly, they better be, because that was one of the better lines in Fire and Blood, and one that helps better inform us as to why they chose to support Daemon. Now, as we saw earlier with the show wanting to give some of Daemon's influence in this matter over to Alicent, they're probably just gonna leave it out, which sucks. Alicent was also not assaulted like this by Ironrod. The creators made an active choice to add this scene of their own, and they seem to continue to make these kinds of choices. Grand Maester Orwyle was jailed by the Gold Cloaks before Rhaenyra took the city. Gwaine Hightower dies when the Gold Cloaks take the city. He's not off doing whatever he's doing in the Riverlands. Otto dies in the same manner he does in the show, but at a later point than this. Aemond finds Harrenhal totally empty aside from the Strongs. He does kill them like in the show, but he never gets his period and he doesn't start to crawl toward Alice Rivers for help. He actually takes her as his prize of war, and they start slamming. And something that's almost missing entirely from this season so far are the details and context and action of the military campaigns that are happening off Dragonback, which I call the ground campaign. I really enjoyed the parts of the book detailing these big armies brutally meeting each other in the field, and how the Rivermen and the Winterwolves were carving their way through the Lannisters and the like. We're just getting to see the aftermath of these formative battles, and it's not what I would have wished for with this show. I'd much rather see some Greybeard Starks cutting down Lannister lions than spending the budget on Rhaena having a mental breakdown on Sheepstealer or seeing the dragon seeds flying around doing fuck all. So, yeah. Probably more changes from the book than you care to hear. And that was not an exhaustive list. But I think it serves its purpose in illustrating just how much things are starting to differ. And I'm still predicting problems down the road. What did you think about episode 2? Did you think this was better or worse than episode 1? Let us know in the comments. And remember to like the video if you liked it, and subscribe to HateWatchers to stay up to date on Season 3 of House of the Dragon. Thank you for sneezing at the worst possible time with me today, and I'll catch you on the next one.